Hi, I'm Jacob.
And I'm Jessica.
And welcome to an Only Murders in the Building sidecast episode of Cluedunnit. We're talking about Only Murders in the Building Season 1, Episode 4 this episode, which I used this title the last time, but they actually used it for this episode. It's actually titled
The Sting,
which is lovely on so many levels, but might be Jessica's favorite piece of television of all time for one very important reason.
I really like Sting.
She really likes Sting. There's a whole lot of Sting in this episode, which is
It's so great.
So what I will have to say about this is that, like, for many years, I'm going to recant on tape and in public. I mean, not really tape, but you know what I mean. In public, like, for many years, I gave Sting just a horrible time. I know, Sting, I'm deeply sorry for whatever wounding I did. I know you were truly concerned about this nobody's, like, opinion of you. But I did. I gave Sting a hard time. I was like, Sting, whatever. The police are fine, but Sting on his own, blah, blah, blah. Like, the rap on Sting was that he's just so dang self-serious. He was just like, I have tantric sex for 6 hours, and look at me doing my acting, and I'm not writing rock and roll songs anymore. I'm very, like, look at my arty songs.
Like every other, pop, rock,
I'm just saying that was the rap on
Whose
Sting.
concert did we go to this last year?
This is all part of a larger plan.
Okay.
But my point is that, like, anybody who still thinks that needs to watch this episode, because he takes the piss out of himself so hard in this episode.
It's great.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. His Moroccan apartment is hilarious as well.
He's got a Moroccan apartment that he's, like, leaving to have gutted because he's having the thing gutted because he feels so much guilt and internalized shame because
he thinks he killed Tim Kono.
Yes. He thinks they have this whole sting where they bring him a turkey, which we'll get to that too. They bring him a turkey and he, like, admits to killing Tim Kono, and they're like, what? And then his assistant Anita comes in and is just like, you did not kill her. I find it hard to believe I have to say this, but he did not kill anybody.
Yeah.
He was just feeling very guilty over the fact that So what we found out is that Tim Kono managed Sting's money, and Sting lost a lot of money.
Tim Kono lost a bunch of money for Sting.
Millions of dollars. And apparently Sting, like, screamed at him and yelled at him and fired him.
Yeah, and said, you should kill yourself.
Yes.
And
which he admits, we learned that when Sting confesses it.
And everybody in the building, well, most of the people in the building think that Tim Kono did commit suicide. They don't know that
the
he
police
is
are
murdered.
calling it a suicide.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's the official line. So Sting thinks that he is at fault for having suggested this to Tim Kono.
And he's practically in tears talking about this.
Yes.
It's hilarious. And then they tell him, no, they think it's a murder. And, like, the joy, the relief on his face is palpable.
Oh, what a relief.
Yes.
Which is an awkward moment for everyone.
But then he
says, oh, the building, it's just so full of regret and
what does he say? He says it's
guilt in every corner or something. And did you write it down?
I did not write it down because I was too busy writing down the lyrics to his song that he writes about it all.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. Yes, because he's like, oh, that sounds like a song.
And he starts playing the song and he's like, I didn't till Tim Kono, oh no, so low. So it's the worst rhymes in the world. And he's just like,
well, that's Martin Short's
right.
character. Oliver says, probably not going to be on your best of album.
And then I'm sorry, this has now become a Sting, but this final line is so great where Sting is just like, writing songs is hard. So yes, this is a great rebuttal to all those years of thinking he's just this, like, yes. He knows how to take the piss of himself.
Yes.
He knows how to take the piss out of himself.
Yes, he does.
So there you go. So yes, I can no longer say bad things about Sting.
Yeah, keep that to yourself, Coakley.
Right.
Wipe that right out of your mouth. But how we get there to this turkey thing.
Yes, the turkey thing.
So I actually called this episode, like we said, is called The Sting, which is a play on both the fact that they think they're doing a sting operation with this turkey, but then also it's The Sting.
The Sting, yes.
Yeah.
Which great little bit when Mabel pretends she doesn't know who Sting is. And
yes.
they, like, go through all these classic rock things. And she's like, wait a minute, Sting, isn't he the guy from U2? great little bit.
Yeah, and they're just standing there agog, like,
Agog.
you have to be.
Yes. And she is, in fact, fucking with them.
Yeah.
But yes.
So, yeah, I called this episode, though, I called it Women Are Baddies.
What? Okay.
Because we have sort of a theme going on. We go to, so when they decide, they're like, oh, there's some evidence that makes us think that Sting might be at fault here.
Yes.
Well, we can't just say that on a public podcast.
Right.
We have to, we should ask somebody's,
We should get some evidence and figure
get
out
some
how to
evidence and
interview him.
opinion about, or like some advice on how to do this.
And who's their favorite podcaster?
Yes, it's Tina Fey's character, Cinda
Cinda.
Channing.
Yes.
And so Charles has a friend in the building who used to play with
Friends' kids used to play with Lucy.
Lucy. And Lucy is his ex-girlfriend's daughter.
Right.
We find out. And then that friend, his kids
Charles
also
really
play with Tina Fey's kids or go to school with Tina Fey's kids. And so that person in the building is going to hook Charles and Oliver and Mabel up to go talk to Cinda Channing, which they're like so amazed and happy about.
And by the way, I want to point out that part, again, back to the whole visual metaphor of these episodes. This episode is bookended by Cinda doing a new
Voiceover.
podcast narration.
Yes.
She's doing a podcast voiceover. And throughout this episode, Charles, Steve Martin, is haunted by people dressed up in suits of Bugs Bunny and Porky Pig like you would find at an amusement park.
Yes.
So they're just like standing at the end of the hall. It's this creepy little Shining moment where it's just like, what is this weird like ghost-like apparition down there?
Yeah, but it's also, what was that movie in 2001, The Big Bunny and...
The one with Echo and the Bunnymen in the soundtrack. It's Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko, yes. That was at Sundance the same year I was.
Well, look at you,
so
fancy
I got to
fancy
meet
lady.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yes, you got
Gyllenhaal,
it. Gyllenhaal.
and
We'll go Gyllenhaal.
Maggie Gyllenhaal. Okay, anyway, Donnie Darko. So yes,
Darko,
it has like a feel of like, to me at
foreboding
least, it
and
had
ominous.
that Donnie Darko kind of
Yes,
feel to it.
You're 100% correct, by the way. That is
Okay,
exactly
thank you,
what's going on.
thank you. Yeah, and we don't know why until we do know why.
Right. We'll get to that, but women
Yeah.
are baddies, so they go see Cinda.
Yeah, and she's getting acquired, her podcast company, and she does give them advice, and it's perfectly fine. And she, frankly, seems kind of perfectly fine, except for the fact that she also seems a little...
She seems a little manipulative
Yeah.
and opportunistic.
Yes.
Like she does not seem trustworthy.
No, not at all.
But they fawn over her. Oh my gosh.
gosh,
Watching
so
them have so
much.
much fun. Like watching them fan out on her is amazing.
Yes, and that is just
It's
the
delightful.
best.
It's charming.
It's so delightful because you know that we have all done that to them
Yes.
at some
and you
point.
know that like when Tina met them, she was fawning all over like yes.
She had to have,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I mean, she was used to meeting all kinds of famous people at
But the first
SNL.
time you meet a famous person, it's like, anyways.
yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
her character Cinda, not so nice.
Yes. So she's kind of a baddie. Then it turns out that Amy Ryan is a
Jan, the
bassoonist. Jan
More
asks,
music in this episode.
asks Charles out on a date, basically.
After they have this like nice little duet in the courtyard, like he hears her playing her bassoon by the window, and he picks up the concertina, which we are still fans of.
Yes.
And he plays it. They play a little couple tunes back and forth, and then she disappears from the window, and you think it's this another little heartbreaking moment for Charles, but it turns out that she slipped a note under his door.
Yes, and it's not on the same paper that Oliver's note was on, but it is the same kind of like thick Sharpie, and
Yes.
it might even be the same kind of handwriting almost.
I couldn't tell on the handwriting because the original note was all in uppercase, and that's the thing about like
Oh,
uppercase, you
right.
can't tell
Yeah.
handwriting.
Yeah.
But this one was slid under the door, not placed on the door. But
Yes.
it's all very much just like,
Yeah.
because you also didn't really like her in this date that she went on. She invited Charles out for a date, and you weren't pleased with that.
I mean, the date is okay. It's fine. She's sharing, and she
he
says
makes an ass of himself.
He makes an ass of himself, but you just don't like. Why is she even in this? like, why are we seeing this date happen or any of this blossoming of this relationship? I mean, it's what. So she shares big stuff about her life.
Yes.
And she says, and this is, I noticed it's directly in the middle of the episode. She says, this is what her therapist actually, she's relating what her therapist has says. We are all driven to recreate the damage of our first wound so we can change the ending. And so I think that is what is happening with Charles.
Well, absolutely what's happening with Charles. Like,
He's recreating that with her, trying to make it different. I mean, okay, it's obvious every time you try to get into a relationship, you're like, no, this one's going to work.
Well, that was, I mean, it was also, that was the whole, so Charles, Jan reveals this very, like, personal story about her father and how and her ex-boyfriend and how she always felt second in her life, which is why she brings up that quote. Her father married somebody else and loved her stepsister more than her. Her ex-boyfriend would always insist on going first and always make her go second. So she's trying to, like, that would be the wound that she's trying to cure.
Yeah.
And she opens it up. She reveals this, like, vulnerable part of herself, and then Charles cannot respond in kind at all. He, like,
until
shuts her down.
Later on when he is motivated to share, and he goes to her room and or goes to her apartment and says, it's like a dorm room. That's why I feel like going to the doors reminds me of going to a dorm room. Anyway, he goes to her apartment, knocks on the door, and he tells the story of his last relationship where the girlfriend thought that she was meeting a man who was very interested in travel and adventurous.
Actor, yeah.
And he is not adventurous. He likes to stay at home. He doesn't like to travel. And she had a daughter, and he was actually really into making a stable life for her young daughter.
Yeah.
And he is like, okay, well,
made her omelets every morning, which is the scene from the first episode that we saw.
Yeah. And then we find out, he says, oh, I invited her, or I paid for us to go on a cruise to celebrate our anniversary. But then it turned out it was a family cruise that he wanted,
not a romantic
because he
cruise.
wanted Lucy to go on it, the daughter. And he also had Porky Pig and
he had booked
Bugs Bunny to be at the anniversary dinner.
But prior to the anniversary dinner, his ex-girlfriend took Lucy on an island excursion and never came back because she wanted to break up with him, and she just thought in the middle of this final break would be best for the daughter. So he is sitting alone and heartbroken at this table as, like, Porky Pig and Bugs Bunny, like, celebrate and throw confetti around him, which is why he's haunted by them throughout the episode. And once he's able to share this with her, they disappear. So, like, clearly the whole, like, we're trying to cure this wound from the last time. We're meant to think that that's the wound that he has just healed.
Yeah, I don't think that she's right for him.
You're not buying it.
No, because I think that, yeah, I mean, it's fine to be a sexy woman, you know, and who wants, yeah, all of that is fine, but he just wants to stay at home. And unless she means that she just wants to stay at home and have sex all the time, which is great, and, you know, go to work and play her instrument, then I guess that's fine. But we just don't know about that with her. I mean, so far when he says, oh, I booked this cruise, she says, oh, how romantic. And he says, well, yeah, that's what Emma thought too.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, maybe you're not right for him because you don't realize that, like, he kind of wants a family. He played Take Me Out to the Ball game when on his concertina, like, expecting her to play that back. And that's when she kind of disappears and asks him out on a date. So it's forgiven. But at the same time, like, I feel like that's a big thing for him, is like, he just kind of wants to stay home, go to the local baseball game.
She's not playing with, she's playing with him, but she is not improvising and adding to what he is putting out there. He is not. Yeah, she is not yes-anding him.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, to be fair, he is not doing a good job of that with her either. And so I don't know, but it sounds like you are picking Jan for your guest this week.
I am, and then of course, in terms of, like, women or baddies.
Yes.
Then the end of this episode,
let's talk about the ending of the episode. Yep.
Will, the vet, and Oliver's son, comes in. He's come all the way from
Jersey.
Yeah. to say that Winnie the dog has recovered and she's
Thank goodness.
fine. Thank goodness. And he just listened to the podcast and he can't believe that he's doing the podcast with Mabel because she was good friends with Tim Kono. They were inseparable and she is bad news.
She's bad news, which they didn't know, which Martin and Steve didn't know about, so Charles and Oliver didn't know about. So they're shocked at this, and they're like, what's going on? And Mabel, meanwhile, like I said, in the past episode, she had found this clue. She thinks she's figured out where what this address means, and she leaves the apartment to go to this address, and one of their main suspects is Tie-Dye Guy, who is seen going up the stairs as opposed to down the stairs at the time of the original Tim Kono's death, the first episode. So Tie-Dye Guy is out there. Tie-Dye Guy starts following her down the street as she leaves the apartment building, which I just want to say, Selena Gomez is dressed impeccably throughout this whole series so far. And her coat is amazing and fantastic, but it does look like a dead Muppet. It's got that fake kind of fur thing happening to it, like a really big shag rug kind of flavor to it.
That's kind of just the look of
I know
her, because it's the first. I was going to say, you made this joke, because the first scene that we see her in the first episode, she's wearing a short version of that coat in like a bright yellow or a bright, I can't remember, but it's a bright color. And the other day, and she's wearing Beats headphones in another bright color. I think they're red, or like hot pink maybe. Our TV sometimes doesn't show color the right way. Anyway. The other day I was looking out the window and there was a woman walking down the street in that jacket, and I think she might have even had Beats on, and I was like, I wonder what murder she's solving. Like, she was walking down the street in LA.
So one final thing. So they suddenly know that they can't trust Mabel. Mabel's being stalked by Tie-Dye Guy, and the episode bookends with Cinda Channing narrating the new podcast all about second chances, when you realize she's talking about them. And she's got a new podcast coming out.
And it says like 5 months in the future.
15, I think, is what I wrote
15
down.
months in the
15
future.
months in the future, yeah. So,
and called Only Murderers in the Building.
Right.
So she has stolen their concept?
Maybe, but so this is the thing. Like, I'm not sure. I think we're meant to believe that that she stole their concept, or she stole their story, or that she's investigating them. I wonder, however, because she got bought for $30 million in this, and it's 15 months later. I'm wondering if they sold their podcast to her. I'm wondering if that's how that's
for
going to play.
$30 million.
Exactly. This is going to be a little bit of a misdirection in here. And in the, sure, she's like Sharky, but she bought it. And so I think that's just a red herring. I think that's going to be totally fine. Watch, I'm going to be totally wrong about this. But
I am also enjoying that in the last episode, in the last kind of moments, I guess it is in this episode, where he says, well, they came for me. They came for the leader of the podcast. And they're like, you're the leader of the podcast? And then they keep making jokes on follow the leader or something the leader or whatever. And so did Oliver need the money? And so he sold the podcast to Cinda? So maybe, I don't know, just all the women seem a little suspect, which leads to your guess and my guess.
Your guess. So you're guessing Jan, and I am. This is the thing. I'm still basically on Team Jan. But I will say, just for the sake of throwing it out there and getting a little different and following the same logic as last time, the only other person who has no motive or anything like that is Anita, Sting's assistant. So right now, according to that logic, Anita is number one suspect on my list right now. She at least needs to go on the murder board.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because she was clearly trying to convince Sting that he was responsible for this and helping him move things up. So she wants to get out of town, too.
Yeah, she does.
There you go.
Yeah, she's helping him move the rainforest tour up.
I'm telling you, he really does know how to, poke fun at himself.
Yes.
And I appreciate that.
Is that what you appreciates about him?
That is. Nothing to do with his music at all. Not true. Lots of hits. You did this is so yes, we did see Sting last fall, and this is what I told my friends when I was talking about the show. I was like, this is the thing. You don't get to be Sting unless you're Sting. people don't get to make fun of you for being self-serious and trying to write serious music and appearing in all these movies. Like, you don't get to be that person unless you are an incredibly gifted and talented songwriter who is really amazing live and knows how to put on a show and has incredible tons of charisma. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you don't get the one without the other. So
Yeah.
Sting has earned it all.
Yeah.
Like, let's be clear.
Yeah. Really great.
All right. Well, we'll find out if he has earned our dismissing him as a suspect in the next episode, I suppose.
I'm crossing my fingers.
I'm sure it'll be okay. We'll see you then.
See you then.